The Mind Your Business podcast is brought to you, as always, by Brooks Brothers Consulting, Inc. Brooks Brothers Consulting is a leadership talent development firm that also provides alternative lending financing for individuals and businesses, as well as legacy insurance products. If you're interested in grooming your new and existing executives, directors, and managers, you need to give me a call or you need to shoot me an email, because I have a program to leverage my 16 years of experience in the banking industry at all those various levels that I mentioned to be able to help your business and help your leaders develop the critical thinking skills and the sales, service, operations, and employee engagement level vision that it takes to run today's organization as well as the organizations of tomorrow. So you need to reach out to me, Ron Brooks, with Brooks Brothers Consulting, Inc., 901-299-6822. You can visit at www.brooksbrothersconsulting.com. Again, that's www.brooksbrothersconsulting.com. And you can also email me at ron@brooksbrothersconsulting.com. For the podcast, today's episode is number 40. So we're creeping towards that coveted number 50 episode. That really is going to be off the chain. You're really going to like that coming up, and you'll see some announcements with that. But today's episode is making the right hires for your business. And so we want to dive into that topic with no delay. But first, we do as we always do.
What we do here is go back.
This is the Body Your Business podcast. I am your host, Ron Brooks, and we're here on a great Friday, March the 23rd of 2018 edition of the podcast, episode number 40. We're extremely excited about that. We've come a long way since August of last year when we started this particular podcast. Thank you so much for all of your support. For those of you that have downloaded, shared the podcast, I've had a chance to attend and actually host some various networking events here in the month of March. And the reach of the podcast is definitely growing. I'm getting people that are starting to recognize me in public from the podcast, which is interesting and sometimes a little scary at the same time. But thank you so much. Continue to do so. You can find us everywhere that podcasts are listed. I can go through the whole list: YouTube, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, everywhere that you're able to find the podcast, particularly on Apple Podcasts. If you would, go out, leave a 5-star positive review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whichever one. And those things help grow the show because it helps put the show up towards the top in terms of engagement, which allows more people to see it, and we can deliver this level of content to more people. So I encourage you to do that on Apple Podcasts. And of course, you can visit us at www.themybpodcast.com. Today's episode, again, is number 40, making the right hires for your business. This week, we had a very interesting week in a NBA and local legend who was hired as head men's basketball coach at the University of Memphis. And so, as we're talking about the University of Memphis, and I'm a University of Memphis grad of 2003, I want to make sure that y'all get plenty of University of Memphis flavor. So we want to get you into the mood with our fight song, baby. Let's do it. University of Memphis fight song. So, like a lot of people, baby, we're back. We've got the right coach hire that I think is going to take us to new heights. And there's just a lot of excitement buzzing around the city. When you go around the University of Memphis campus, there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of excitement, of course, around the city. And rightfully so. So that is definitely a great thing. What we want to talk about today is I want to draw a few parallels to my own experience as it comes to hiring. As many of you know, I have throughout my career at various levels, whether that's at the manager level within an organization, at the director level, and also at the executive level, I've had the opportunity to lead various teams. Big and small. I've led teams as small as 3 individuals outside of myself, up until the executive level where I was responsible for 95 people, or roughly about 2/3 of the employee count at an organization. So I've been able to do it all. And of course, I have various experiences with hiring and that sort of thing. And it's really critical, and I wanted to give this content today, it's critical that within your business, whether you're a one-person business or you've got aspirations to have 10,000 employees, or you currently do have 10,000 employees, or whatever your mix is, as you know, regardless, hiring is super critical in today's environment. Always has been. But today you have a lot of talent that's out there, but it's not always developed, and it's not always the type of experience and things that you need for today's economy. Today's economy is very informational based. It's technology based. So you have to have the kind of talent that not just knows kind of what to do, but has a good, strong emotional intelligence around how to operate within the team aspect, how to work as an individual, and how to be able to leverage and anticipate the leveraging of new technologies as they come about, because technology becomes so swiftly. And companies that don't invest in the technology and then don't hire the proper workforce to be able to accommodate that and ultimately accommodate whatever relationships they have, whether they're B2B or direct to consumer or retail focused, whatever that is, you've got to be able to make the right hire. With the University of Memphis, and here's where I want to draw some parallels, and then I want to get into my story. The University of Memphis, of course, fired on last week Coach Tubby Smith, and certainly wish him the best. In my opinion, I don't feel that that particular process was handled the very best. I thought there was a better way and a better, more respectful way to be able to go through that process, understanding that you had concerns about on-court performance, although the team did win 21 games this season and was able to make a run in the American Athletic Conference tournament this year, just a couple weeks ago. They were able to win a couple games in the tournament despite their seeding. But there was a lot of grumbling about the on-court performance of the team, because there were some losses to some, what many would consider some lesser opponents. There were concerns with the head coach and his administration, Coach Smith, and his recruiting. There were concerns about economics as it related to Coach Smith and the dwindling attention from the fan base that voted with their feet and with their wallet. And so The university announced that they had a loss or deficit related to Tiger basketball of about $4.7 million. Of course, that's economic terms. That's a loss of opportunity, not so much just a loss of hard cash out of their accounts, I'm sure. So ultimately, any business cannot sustain loss, whether it's actual loss to the bottom line or loss of opportunity to that extent. No coach is really going to survive that at a university of this magnitude and this size, such as the University of Memphis. So the University of Memphis ultimately felt the need to make a change. I did not disagree with that as someone with an economics background, right? I understand that's the reason that you make the move. The on-court performance, that's arguable. That's completely subjective. What's fairly objective is the economics of it. And the economics was it was dwindling, not just this year, but over the last year, and with the previous coaching staff of one Coach Josh Pastner, who is down at Georgia Tech University, who was the University of Memphis head coach prior to Coach Tubby Smith. So you had what was amounting to a few years of dwindling fan support that included dwindling season ticket sales, dwindling attendance to games, dwindling interest in the team. And, there were, mistakes to have been made all the way around. Here's the deal. Again, he should have been handled with much more respect. I would tell anybody that. Regardless of the severance amount that Coach Smith is to receive, which has been reported as $10 million over X number of years. Even with that, as you could imagine, there are other people that are involved in a head coaching turnover or transition. There's not just Coach Smith, there's his assistant coaches. All of those are not receiving that amount, I wouldn't think. You've got trainers and athletic folks and film guys, and a lot of people that are impacted by this particular situation. There are a lot of families that are impacted by that situation. And so with that being said, it is definitely, from my standpoint as an alumni, I'd like to thank Coach Tubby Smith for what he did bring to the university. I like to think that people give their best effort, and he really wanted to make it work. And so when your job is that public like his is, and a lot of you could imagine, imagine if, everybody wants you, to lose your job, and it's on the media and everybody's talking about how you're going to lose your job and talking about your replacement, why you still have the job. Some of y'all get nervous when someone comes in the cubicle next to you that's been empty for a little while, So imagine if you had to, no matter, the money's one thing, all right? So, the money's one thing, but the deal is that you want to be treated with a level of respect as you go through the process, because there's family, there's wives and children and things like that involved, and people have to look at what their next step is. And jobs, there's only so many jobs that are out there and opportunities, and it usually results in a relocation. So you got to move kids out of school, and wives have to give up jobs, and they have to pick up jobs in some cases if they're working. And there's just a whole lot of rigmarole things that go into this. So I want to first preface by saying that. Now, is Coach Penny Hardaway, someone who I've had a chance to meet on several occasions, was someone that I was a huge supporter of during his NBA career, including the time Penny was the starting point guard for the Orlando Magic, made it to the NBA Finals against the Houston Rockets in 1995. And I was in 8th grade. I lost a $20 bet to a friend who thought that the Rockets were going to beat the Magic. I thought he was crazy as hell, but so I took that bet, and of course that turned out to backfire on me. But that's okay, that happens. But definitely following Penny's career post his retirement from the NBA, where he's able to get involved at the youth level at Leicester Middle School, coached them to championship level status. Was able to transition that to being the head coach at East High School here in Memphis, a prominent high school here. able to build one of the most successful AAU programs that you've seen in this area and arguably around the country with Team Penny. And now transitioning to the opportunity to coach at the college level. So he stair-stepped his way and kind of grew his profile with that, although he's someone of a large stature from his celebrity and the respect that he garners, given his accolades and things like that. So was it a great hire? Yes. I would have said that it's a hire that they should have made back after Coach Josh Pastner. And if I had been in charge, that's something I would have seriously considered, me not knowing any of the conversations at that time and how it was positioned and what the interest level was. But if there had been a mutual interest, I would have made that hire back then. And so we want to talk about that, about making good hires. And I want to talk about some of my experience with that. First, I want you all to listen to the Penny's conversation earlier this week at the press conference they had on campus that was very well attended, as you can imagine. Thousands of people showed up to the facilities there on campus to be able to see and kind of bear witness to Penny's introduction. Here it is.
And finally, I want to talk about the young man that I had a chance to spend most of Sunday afternoon and have talked consistently with the last 3 days, and it's been extraordinary. He's a champion. Everywhere he's been, everything he's done his best. He's the ability to do the extraordinary every day. He's an Olympian. He's an NBA All-Star. He was the finest high school player in the city. He was an All-American at the Tigers. He has been an incredible coach, and now his next move and legacy is to be the head coach at the University of Memphis. Please join me in welcoming Coach Penny Hardaway, Coach, Memphis Tigers.
Good morning. Am I playing again? I do have 1 year eligibility left, so maybe. But no, this is an unbelievable day. I couldn't have dreamed anything any better. Just coming here today was just amazing, just a ride, just to enjoy the journey coming here of start of something special. First, I'd like to, before I start talking, thank the Board of Trustees and the Executive Committee with Alan Graff, Cato Johnson, and Brad Martin. I thank you guys for doing what you did for me. I'd like to thank the Athletic Director, Tom Bourne, and our President, David Rudd, because they had to believe in me to bring me here. You know, it wasn't easy to bring me here because of my experience with college basketball. But I told everybody all I had to do was have the Memphis blood in me and the heart and the passion for winning basketball. And that's all we need. To me, I'm not a luck hire. I'm not just coming here to be a face. I'm coming here to make a difference, and I really feel like I can do so with the help of getting the fans back into the stands like it was back in the old school days, from the Coliseum to the Pyramid to here. I miss those days. We got to get those days back. I am dedicated to this team that just finished this season. You know, like I told those kids in the locker room, it was kind of unfair a little bit to them that nobody really showed up. But those days are gone. We're ready to win. They're dedicated to it. We're going to move forward. I'm looking forward to coaching these guys and also bringing some really good talent here that the city of Memphis would love to see on a nightly basis. It's really great looking out in the stand. Looking out in the crowd and seeing all the familiar faces from when I played and the people that have been so supportive of the university. It's a family reunion. You know, I see a lot of, that's how I feel I'm family. So we're back to being family. I want to see the Memphis flags waving on the cars. I want to see the T-shirts going again, the hats going again like the old school days, and that's where we want to take it back to. As a coach, you know, my style, we're going to get after it, and I know that's what we love. We're going to play hard-nosed basketball, running, jumping, pressing everywhere, and winning basketball games. Losing is not an option in my mind. It's not. I really want to hit the ground running. I know everybody's saying, you know, be patient. Try to do this first. Try to do that first. I'm not built that way. I'm not wired that way. I go for it all or nothing at all. And that's what I told these players. We're all in on being great and on being excellent. And that's the standard that we want to go to. As you look at this facility, it just speaks for itself, the dedication that the donors and the boosters gave to be able to build this facility. This has come a long way since the field house when I practiced at the field house. And I'm sure the older players, Will Fong and Moody and all those guys, and Dwight Boyd, Elliot Perry, they know. We love the field house, though. Believe me, we just wanted to win basketball games. But how could you not love this facility and be able to bring kids in here and grind and work to be able to put a product out on the floor that you guys will be proud of? And that's what I'm here for. So thank all you guys for coming. I'm excited. I'm ready to go, and I hope you are too. Thank you.
Okay, so that was newly minted Coach Anfernee Penny Hardaway, former NBA star, NBA veteran, and local celebrity and local product of Memphis, Tennessee. So you heard several things there that he touched on. He touched on the current team. He touched on a commitment to the current players. He touched on his philosophy in terms of getting after it, being hard-nosed and things like that, which is how he played. Although Penny was fairly slight, he's tall, but he's fairly slight. Penny played hard. When you look at his effort defensively, his effort offensively, his leadership ability, things like that. I remember watching at a time when he first started having the injuries. Penny's the only player to score 40 points kind of consecutively against a Pat Riley defense team that he had in Miami. And for those that are old enough to remember some of those late 90s Miami Heat teams with Alonzo Mourning and P.J. Brown and Tim Hardaway and those kind of teams, those were some bad boys and some tough teams. And Penny would go out there and Penny was scoring 35 to 45 points every night in the first round playoffs series where Orlando was like the 7th or 8th seed, and Penny was able to do that. So, Penny's game's always been able to flourish. He's a guy that's well respected in the NBA now. He's got his shoes and things like that. But a lot of today's players, Tracy McGrady recently retired, has always looked up to Penny. LeBron James with the Cleveland Cavaliers has always looked up to Penny and whatnot. So that's always kind of been there for Penny. Here's the thing, why I think it's a good hire is the University of Memphis. I spoke earlier from the economic standpoint. When you look at what the need is, and this is a big thing when you're hiring for your business, is one of the first things you've got to do is what is your true need, right? What is the need for your business? You have to be able, it's not just hiring just to be hiring. You have to be able to tie that talent to what do you want that talent to drive for you? In Penny's case, what the University of Memphis is looking for is energy. They needed the energy infusion. You need to be able to rile up your fan base. You need to be able to energize them. You need to be able to give them a level of hope. And you need to be able to tie into the community. Memphis is unique in that sense because you have an urban university within a major city. Most universities are in kind of small towns and things like that. But when you're in kind of a city here, and for the longest time was kind of the only sports opportunity that you had beyond the high school level that people were always tied to. And there's been a lot of great hometown heroes, Larry Finch and Ronnie Robinson and Keith Lee and Elliot Perry and Andre Turner, Marcus Moody, Ken Moody. They're all along the way. There's been Billy Richmond. There's been hometown folks along the way that have, tied in and built the Tiger tradition, Snap Hunters, those kind of things. So that's what the University of Memphis needed. And so that's what they hired. And they were losing money or losing opportunity as a result of not having those things. So every hire is kind of contingent on the environment and what the need is. Your business may not need an infusion of energy. You may already have that. You may need an infusion of expertise. So you may need specific expertise in your business that's maybe not as easy to find. So that's what you have to go and find the talent to do that. If the University of Memphis had the energy, let's just say the University of Memphis had 18,000 people in the stands and was this cash cow and things like that. But maybe they were having some issues on the court, or maybe they were not getting to the NCAA tournament and things like that. And maybe the thought might have been, well, hey, we need someone more experienced with a certain level of coaching, demonstrated coaching X's and O's and things like that. Well, that makes a big difference, right? So it all comes back to what your need is for your business. And University of Memphis nailed it, completely with the Penny Hardaway hire. Even though, and you heard Penny say this in his speech, that sure, he doesn't have college basketball experience, right? In terms of he's never coached a college basketball game, anything like that. But he did speak to his passion, all right? And so his passion for winning, his passion for connecting with the city and things like that, his passion for recruiting, and all those are big parts of the game. Some of the naysayers have said that, they're concerned about Penny not having the college X's and O's, and when he goes up against an experienced Roy Williams or a John Calipari or any of these folks, or Mike Krzyzewski, or that he could potentially get out coached. And we don't know. We don't know how that's going to be. Okay, so we have no idea what kind of coach Penny's going to be because he hasn't coached college basketball. What you do know, and you've already seen, is he's going to recruit. He's already bringing in top level talent already just this week. In what is his first week, he's already made great connections because he's already a booster, already an alumni. Penny actually graduated with me. We were in the same graduation in 2003. We graduated actually there from the Pyramid. Because this was before they had the FedEx Forum. So we actually graduated from the Pyramid together, same graduating class. And so there's that tie, that connection there. And again, that goes back to the energy that was needed, certainly right now and for going forward. So from a performance standpoint, we'll see where that's going to be. The University of Memphis had to take the risk. And this is something else I want to tie to you that are listening that have businesses or you're starting businesses, is you've got to be able to take a risk in a hire. Every hire is a risk, right? Every hire is a risk. There's no sure bet thing. Penny's not a sure bet coach. Any coach they would have hired would have had great strengths and some concerns or opportunities that you have to either, mitigate or hopefully eliminate as you go forward. So we'll see next season. There'll be some rough patches in it. There'll be some great joys. The fans are going to come out, and I think Penny and the team are really going to give a show. I think they're going to have a great season. I think year 2 is really going to be something where Penny really gets his sea legs under him and really gets out there. But he's surrounding himself with good people, which is another thing in your business. You want to make sure that you surround your new hire with the right people. The right people should be you and anybody else in your organization that can help with onboarding and help with building whatever it is that you need built. One of the mistakes that gets made, and I'm going to get to my story here in a second, but one of the mistakes that gets made is you bring someone in like Penny or anybody that you hire, and you just kind of leave them out there. You just kind of say, here's your office, here's the practice facility, here's the warehouse, here's the branch, here's what it is, and then that's it. They just kind of leave you there and expect you to perform. And that can be dangerous. That can be very dangerous when you're talking about making a new hire and grooming them to be successful, right? You have to insulate them. Onboarding is very critical to the hiring process. Onboarding being whether it's the first day, the first week, the first month, the first year, the first year and a half or so, depending on the level of position. And so we look towards Penny's success, but I want to kind of combine this with, I'm going to give you a quick story of a time where I did not do the best kind of hiring. And we're going to do that here on the other side. So I want to kind of go through a time. So I told you a little bit about my background, and let me give you a story, a true story of a time when I made a really bad hire in a business. At the time, I had a business in the Midtown area of Memphis. For those that are familiar with Memphis, it was on Madison Avenue. And the name of the business was actually Minding Your Business. That was the name of the business. And I was running it kind of myself. I had me and, of course, family there with Cleo, and we did a lot to kind of rehab the building that we had acquired, and there was a lot of work that was done in terms of the aesthetics and to get it ready. And so we opened up there. Actually, we had relocated from an area in Hickory Hill, and we had our consignment business. And we were consigning, clothes, men's and women's clothing, some of it business attire and things like that. So a fairly solid model that we had, fairly streamlined. We were one of the first to embrace the tablet for a credit card swipe. This is a time frame of 2012, 2013. So this is before, Square was really getting big, and you had PayPal, but as far as from a credit card swiping, that was still fairly new. I needed help in the store, and so I hired a young lady from the neighborhood. She, at that time, was probably in her mid-20s, I would suggest. So she was somewhere around 25, 26, somewhere in there. And she lived just around the corner from the store, from the location. So I put out, of course, the job description and things like that. Put that out a number of different avenues, and got several resumes and things like that, and actually did an interview. And I had people as part of the interview, which I always recommend, get you an extra set of eyes in your interviews. Don't just do it yourself, because there may be things that you miss or don't touch upon, or questions that don't get asked or elaborated on, that having a partner there as part of the interview can help you give a fresh perspective and make sure that you get the information relayed as well as received as dealing with a potential candidate. So I did that. And so the interview went very well with this young lady, and she ended up getting hired. What I did not do, I didn't do a background check. I did not run credit or any of those kind of things. I kind of went off my own eye test with it, and my own, thought in terms of the way she responded to questions and things like that. I thought was fairly solid. I thought she had some opportunity to grow, but she had good work experience and things like that. So, I brought her on, just as, the University of Memphis brought on Coach Tubby Smith at a time when some would argue that they did not properly vet his understanding of the scope of the job and the position, as I described it earlier, how the city of Memphis is, and when you're in an urban area and a city that believes that it should be competing for the NCAA tournament and making runs into the tournament and things like that, and connecting with the community, Coach Smith kind of wanted to do it his way. He was a bit old school in that. And he had his way that had proven true, that after X amount of time, 2 or 3 years, he's got the team up and in the tournament and some things like that. And that turned out to not be acceptable for the University of Memphis. Compare that to this young lady. The young lady that I hired, at that time, what I needed was reliability. I needed an infusion of talent in terms of retail, being able to manage, and I needed customer service. I hired a young girl that she had a few personal problems that came out after the fact in some cases, but there were some signs of it too. She often would be late to work or be running late and some things like that. So she had some personal things she was dealing with, but based on what I needed, I should have vetted out her background and some things like that more than what I did, right? And so by not doing that, I put myself in a kind of precarious situation because there was one day I was looking to do an event there at the store, and she was supposed to help me in some areas. She was going to do some poster board signage and some things like that. And she claimed to be really good at art and some things like that. And, so the weeks are leading up to the event, and I'm checking in I'm kind of serving as project manager on it and trying to make sure that we get to where we need to get to, right? Well, I got to where she wouldn't answer my calls all of a sudden. And, she's scheduled to be at the store to cover and things like that. So her communication got spotty. She called me back days later, and we're having conversations with that. And then there are a few times where I might be away from the store and I get a phone call from a good client or things like that, the consignment store. And they're, it's during business hours, but then we're closed. It's like, is anybody here? And yada, yada, yada. And, then I call her. I don't get an answer. I go by. She's not there. I call. I don't get an answer. Her voicemail's full. She's not responding to text or email. So I'm trying to first make sure that there's nothing wrong, nothing happened or anything like that, just to make sure everything's on the up and up. There's no issues with safety and things like that or anything that might have been an impact. But just no communication, just shut off. And we're getting the closer we're getting to the event, and she's just missing work and things like that was an issue. So the event happens, and now I'm pissed. I'm livid because I've got no communication. I end up having to put together signage at the last minute and things like that once I kind of deduced that I probably wasn't going to hear from her. And if I did hear from her, we've got some other things to discuss rather than some signage. And so, so we did the event, didn't hear, so at the event, I'm kind of thinking, she doesn't show up, whatever. I'm kind of going to be done with her. So she kind of fired herself. I got a call from the young lady's landlord who was actually looking for her because she owed some rent and found out that she was working with me at the store. And so he calls me one evening and we had a conversation. He said she did him the same way, which is why he was calling around to try to find out where she's at because she owes money on the rent. She kind of ran out on him. And so, I say that as an example of a time when I didn't do a good job of doing my background check. You've got to do that. If you're going to hire into your business, you've got to know who you're dealing with. You've got to be able to verify ID. You've got to be able to verify that if a person says they're John Smith or they're Jane Smith, that's who they truly are. I didn't do that. And the University of Memphis, in comparison, didn't really do that when you looked at Coach Tubby Smith's background for what you needed. At that time, they needed an infusion 2 years ago, an infusion of energy and things like that at the University of Memphis for its men's basketball program. They did not get that with Coach Tubby Smith. Tubby Smith's not a rah-rah guy, connect in the community, connect with AAU affiliates, and he's not a guy that's going to get on the radio circuit, local or national too much, and kind of cheerlead the program from that standpoint. That's not what he does. He's a guy that says, shut up and let me coach, and get all the other stuff of dealing with boosters and who you got to deal with this and whose palms got to be greased with this and and he recruits at a certain level, kind of 2-star, 3-star kind of guys for the most part. And if that's not what you want or what you're looking for, bringing him on is not doing him any favors or yourself. And it's the same thing with this young lady. By not doing the background check and the background due diligence, right? I took an L on that one. I lost productivity. It impacted the business, impacted me. It impacted service because the other thing is she would move clothes around. So clothes, that we, should be put in one area is not there. And in that business and consignment, people are, when things don't sell after so much, they come looking for it. And when, it's not a good answer or a good look when you got to tell a customer, I can't find your stuff that you entrusted me with to be able to provide and hopefully sell that you can make some money and be able to kind of clean out your closet and things like that. And listen, people would bring me some awesome kind of stuff, man. I'm talking about, I had people at the consignment, they would stop by to see me to bring their best stuff, take the rest of it to Goodwill. People would tell me about estate sales. I would go to estate sales all the time and pick up things that were rare in some cases. People would have clothes that still had the tag on it that they didn't want, they bought and never wore. And so we were able to do all these things, right? And it was really cool. But by not hiring the right talent, it cost me. It set me back a good bit. I don't want that to happen to y'all. So you got to make sure that you do the due diligence background check. Make sure that in the interview process, you're prepared. You know exactly what questions you want to ask, how you want to counter their answers, and tie that into your brand culture, your own personal culture, and what do you need out of that particular role today, as well as anticipating in the future. And the University of Memphis didn't do that with Tubby Smith, and so that ended up costing them energy and ended up costing them engagement with the fan base. And when people vote that way, business owners have to make decisions. So the University of Memphis principals, university president, athletic director, and so on, boosters and supporters had to make a decision, and a conscious decision. I had to make a conscious decision with my consignment business, right? So all of that, it goes hand in hand. You want to make sure that you do that. I'm going to tell you another story of a time. This is in my banking career. So working for an institution here in Memphis, and I hired a who I considered at the time a really good friend. This was someone that I'd known for a couple decades, and we had actually worked together with through affiliate companies kind of early on in my career, and someone that I always looked to for, in some cases, some mentorship and, just kind of that support from man to man and brother to brother. And he was looking to get out of a family-owned business in terms of being able to run it day to day and kind of scale it back, and wanted to get back into banking and wanted a little bit more of a steady, kind of existence. And we had conversations about it. I shared with them a position that I was hiring for within the bank, and that really fit his background because he was a business owner and things like that. So I was hiring him into a kind of a business relationship manager role. So you fast forward and you go through the hiring process and things like that, and we got some things in order, so he's finally able to start. And I had already kind of learned my lesson in the with some previous hires that I just shared with you on how to be prepared to do the background check. Even though this was a good friend of mine, prepared to do the background due diligence. And I actually sent HR a copy of a 90-day onboarding plan, which I encourage all of you to do. A 90-day onboarding plan. I just did it in Word, nothing fancy, no frills. But y'all, I did that to be able to provide my friend, as he's coming on, guidance over what's going to happen, what I'm going to introduce them to, and what the expectations are over the first 90 days in the role, because those are so critical to be able to move forward with someone that you want to have for some extended period of time in the role. And so I did that. I shared that with HR, and this was it was broken down by the week. So you had obviously 12 weeks roughly in a 90-day period or a quarter. And the idea is everything from who they need to call, who they need to touch bases with, how often we're going to meet to go over performance, to go over what they're seeing in the role, who to connect them to, what training they need to complete. All those different things and expectations were placed upon this individual by myself, because he was reporting to me so he was a direct report of mine. And so the idea is that when we met, we would talk every day, but we would meet formally once a week, right, on a regular schedule, which I encourage you to do. In your business, you need to set up consistent meeting times with folks. You can't just wing it, right, and just say, oh, we'll meet whenever I make time or whenever you make time and all that kind of thing. You got to be able to have it on the calendar, scheduled, ready to go, and with the expectation that you're going to review performance, and you're going to review any obstacles that they're going through, what they're seeing, what you're seeing, things like that. So there's good information, two-way street that you let them prepare. You don't have to do all the talking. You let them do actually the majority of the talking. So that's what we had. What started to happen fairly early on, and one of the concerns when you're at kind of a high level, so whether you're the owner or you're an executive or director or whatever at a company is, sometimes people don't always want to tell you the truth or tell you anything. Some of that's because people don't want to feel like they're diming somebody out or snitching and that kind of thing, you know. So because of that, what started to happen was this individual, my friend, was not returning phone calls, was not returning emails in a sufficient amount of time and things like that. And so it's creating some angst amongst the team in terms of being able to refer clients to this individual. And instead of, the team kind of sharing that with me, really such that I can address it. It's not to go be a butthole about it in any kind of manner. It's, hey, this is the business. This is what I hired you to do, Doc. So if you're not able to do that, I need to understand why. What's the obstacle getting in the way? But this is what you need done because this is what we've been reviewing. And it's a critical piece to that particular role is that you establish yourself by having great communication skills, follow up. When someone calls you, you need to pick up the phone. Even if you got to tell them, hey, can I give you a call right back in the middle of something, you need to pick up the phone. You've got to overly communicate. You got to be very aggressive with it. So that was not happening. Finally, we got some people that had some gumption to come and begin sharing that with me. So I had a conversation with my friend after this is being shared with me from a couple different angles. And, so I'm starting to hear this consistent message that my friend is not being forthright in his information around how he's communicating. So he wasn't doing that. So anyway, we fast forward and I'm addressing this with him. And so there was someone within the organization that was in another department that had major trouble apparently communicating with my friend. And thus he ran that up the flagpole to other leadership within the organization. And as a result, that resulted in a storm, if you will, of issue, right? And from that storm, it came down through me, and there were some issues that I had to present my friend with, and it kind of drove a wedge between us that I really didn't like. Which is difficult. And so what I'd share with you as a business owner is be leery of hiring friends and family and things like that, particularly if they're going to work directly for you in the business, because it creates a very difficult situation for yourself as a hiring manager, as an owner, as an entrepreneur, when you do that and performance isn't there or isn't what you set the expectation for. As long as you gave a clear expectation and it's something that you reviewed and the skill set is there and the willingness is there, you should have execution, and it should be positive and up until the levels that you like and hopefully to exceed the expectation. That did not happen, and it resulted ultimately in a little bit of bad blood and ultimately his resignation from the company. And so I say that, and you compare that to the University of Memphis, y'all. Listen, I said it earlier in this particular podcast. I did not like the way that Coach Tubby Smith was treated by the University of Memphis. I thought there was a more respectful way. I don't have all the details, so I'm not someone that claims to be in the know on this and that. Just on the surface, that's my opinion on it. However, you get to a point where you got performance, you got economic performance, and that just wasn't there in the University of Memphis case and in their assessment, which totally makes sense. In my case, this was someone that was close. This is someone who had a really good resume for the position, probably one of the best resumes you would find in the market in terms of talent for this position. And it's, I think what ended up happening, and this wasn't something that was admitted to, that kind of hurt me because I prided on our friendship that this individual would be open to me about what was going on. What I think happened is the family business would not let him get out. He found himself wedged back into it, and it was pulling on him, trying to work the opportunity with me, as well as work the opportunity that he still had with his existing business. And I think the impact of that and the stress from that led to him not being the best communicator, and then not being the best communicator and handler of business led to some dime dropping within the organization, and thus led to decisions being made and some things like that impacted both him and myself. Him kind of more immediately, and then me later on. And I'll share another story on another podcast in terms of how I've transitioned from my previous employer. So you definitely don't want to miss that. That's going to be coming up soon. So, did I make a bad hire with my friend? No, I did not. Are there things that I take away that I should have done? Yes. One of the things that I should have done with my friend was we were having the regular meetings, talking on the phone. I should have followed up behind him, right? And so for your early hires, you should make sure within your business that you follow up behind. Don't just take Ron's your word for it. When Ron's telling you, yes, I'm working on 5 deals, and this person or this location, this branch, whatever it is, called me about this deal. Follow up with that branch and just say, hey, I understand that you had a chance to talk with Jackie, or a chance to talk with John. How is that going? And what's some of your feedback and your relationship building? Looks like you're able to build a good relationship, or looks like you haven't been able to, and get that feedback in a way that, in a format that people feel comfortable sharing with you in leadership. Like I said earlier, people sometimes don't want to drop the dime on folks, and they don't want to be the one to quote unquote snitch. And so they get a little lax with sharing information with you. They're just more water cooler talking. You've got to get to a point where people will share that information. Had I done that, I would have been probably more apt to uncover early on and in more detail what happened as a result, and be able to confront my friend and possibly be able to rectify a situation before it got to be the big brouhaha that it became. And so the University of Memphis, in comparison, it became a big brouhaha because the on-court performance was suffering, and then the economic performance was suffering simultaneously. So you kind of got to pick a struggle, right, is the way you're looking at it. Plus, there was backlash against the university for the hire ultimately, from a lot of pockets. Now, of course, Coach Smith had his fan club and his folks that were great supporters of him, which is fantastic, and you should have that. But the vast majority was not supportive. And what was unfortunate is that people began to stop going to games and stop buying season tickets, and even using their season tickets to come to the game. Hopefully the city will learn from that, and things don't get better because you walk away. They get better because you become more engaged in it. And hopefully in the future that people will remain engaged, even with Coach Hardaway, if they run into some snags. they lose 2 or 3 games in a row or something like that, hopefully the city doesn't just abandon them and abandon Coach Penny, and they remain supportive throughout whatever length his tenure is as head coach of men's basketball at the University of Memphis. So in the 2 stories that I shared, one being my business with the consignment business with the young lady, the other being a good friend and him, kind of not doing this thing. There's some things that you want to take away, and in addition to me not following behind my friend, another thing that I should have done was I should have kind of had him do a pipeline report. And this is, you don't want to add a bunch of just tasks to your employees and things like that, just undue tasks. But a pipeline report would have opened some things up. It would have let me know who he's actually reaching out to and who he's calling and things like that, such that I can be a resource to that in terms of helping them close a deal or whatever it is, or providing them some information, as well as keep him on track and understand the type of people that he's going after and what sense it makes to have them go after certain people in terms of what's the overall culture and scope of the position. You should do that in your business as well. You should have some level of pipeline report as to, particularly if you're in sales, some level of pipeline report should be created. You can do it in Excel. You can make it web-based if you so choose. But you have to have a way to capture what a person is doing from moment to moment or day to day, such that you build a trust with them and a rapport. They get ingrained into the culture, and you can continue to move forward with the endeavors that you have to move forward with. So it is really uber critical that you take away some of these things from this particular episode, that the hiring process is super critical. You've got to identify the talent. You've got to have a strong interview, not just yourself. You've got to set proper expectations, even in writing. So you want to be able to do that. So, it's still just ultra critical with that, y'all. It is. And I like to see everybody do well with the hiring process and be willing to give people a chance. One of the things the University of Memphis did with Penny Hardaway is they're giving him a chance. He's sparking energy. No, he doesn't have the experience. And so in some cases, if you don't want to go strictly off passion, you want to go off some experience too. And you don't want to just be going off degrees, right? Degrees are just one thing. They just show that you can finish a program. They don't tell you a lot, because there's a lot that's not taught in business school or any kind of college or university that are skill sets that you probably need out of a position. So make sure you keep track with all these kind of things. And I hope you got really good content of the parallels between the University of Memphis and my particular situation that you can take into your business. That's what the Minding Your Business podcast is all about. That is what it's all about. So listen, I'm your host, Champ Ron Brooks. This is the Minding Your Business podcast. Thank you so much for listening today. You all have been fantastic and supportive of the show. Again, make sure that you share it. Make sure that people know about it within your circle. If you have topic ideas, make sure to email those to me, ron@themybpodcast.com. Make sure you support me at brooksbrothersconsulting.com. There's other podcasts you should support. The Buy Black podcast with my guy Gerald Jones. The Startup Life with my guy Dominic Lawson. The Antidote with my guy Lawrence Thompson. Home of the Hustle with my guy Jason Daniels of Titans Electrical. Jason Daniels, the Titan of Titan Success Academy. These are people you should support. My guy Philip Ashley Ricks with Philip Ashley Ricks Chocolates, and just a myriad of folks. I don't want to get into everybody because I know I'm going to leave somebody out. But thank you so much. Let's have a great weekend. It's starting to warm up here. Shout out to everybody in the Northeast that's running into some of the inclement weather up there. Man, it's been rough in that northeastern area, the New England area, and that kind of thing. I'm your host, Champ Ron Brooks. There's no business like minding your own. Have a great weekend, y'all.